At 6:17 on the morning of November 21, 1943, Private First Class Marcus Holland crouched in a foxhole on the island of Tarawa and watched a Marine corporal inch forward to scout Japanese positions. He was 22 years old with 4 days of combat experience and had no answer for the problem that was killing American Marines by the dozens. The Japanese had 800 snipers spread across Battle Island. They were expert shooters and most had trained for 2 years. They had waited in palm trees, concrete bunkers, and hidden spider holes for 3 days while American forces came ashore. Now they were picking off Marines one at a time with near-perfect accuracy. The morning casualty count was devastating. 47 Marines had been killed by sniper fire in the first 72 hours, not by artillery and not by banzai attacks, but by single rifle shots from positions nobody could pinpoint. The snipers fired once or twice and then went quiet. By the time Marines returned fire, the shooter had already slipped away. American officers had attempted every solution they could think of. They used artillery barges to blast suspected sniper nests. Flamethrower teams scorched entire palm groves. Machine gun crews poured concentrated fire into the tree lines. Nothing made a difference. The snipers adjusted to every tactic. They would fire from a new location each time. They would kill a Marine, vanish, wait, and then kill again. The math was harsh and straightforward. Each Japanese sniper caused an average of 6 American casualties before being taken out. 6 Marines died for every 1 sniper eliminated. The 2nd Marine Division was losing experienced riflemen faster than replacements could reach the shore. Holland had grown up on a wheat farm outside the town of Liberal in Kansas. His family worked 640 acres of land. The farm survived only if they protected the crops from crows during harvest season. Crows would swoop in by the hundreds during August. They would strip whole rows of wheat before anyone could respond. In 1937, Holland's father lost 38% of his harvest to crows. That loss amounted to $340 in income. 3 months of earnings were gone. When Holland turned 13, his father handed him a Winchester .22 rifle and 12 boxes of ammunition. He told his son that the wheat fields were his responsibility now. If he let the crows take the crop, the family could not afford to plant again the following year. Holland's father taught him something the Marine Scout Sniper Manual never mentioned. Do not shoot at crows directly. Make the crows waste their effort by reacting to nothing. The idea was simple. Crows attacked when they spotted movement in the fields, so create fake movement, make them commit to a target that did not exist. Once they committed, they would land in the same predictable places. That was when you took the shot. Holland's first decoy was a shirt stuffed with hay and fixed to a wooden cross. He would set it up in the field at dawn and pull a string from 50 yards away to make it move. Crows would dive at it, miss, circle in confusion, and land in the same 3 trees every time to regroup. Holland would be waiting in those trees with his .22 rifle. He killed 47 crows during the first week using that approach. By the end of August, he had taken out 280 birds. The wheat harvest that year reached 94% success. His father said it was the best yield they had ever produced. Holland never described the decoy setup to his father in detail and only said that it worked. But Holland understood the mindset. Crows committed to targets based on motion and silhouette. Once they committed, they moved in predictable ways. Create the right fake target and you could steer them exactly where you wanted them to go. Simple and effective with no complicated tactics needed. Now he was watching Marines fall to Japanese snipers who were behaving exactly like those crows. They waited for movement, committed to a target, and killed. And nobody was forcing the snipers to waste their shots on empty distractions. Holland had been thinking about this for 3 days. What if Marines stopped acting as the targets? What if they made false targets instead? They could make snipers fire at decoys instead of real men. They could force the Japanese to burn ammunition on empty helmets while Marines tracked their muzzle flashes. He had brought the idea up to his squad leader that morning. Corporal Vincent Russo was from Brooklyn. He had been in combat since the fighting on Guadalcanal. He had already lost 8 men to snipers at Tarawa. When Holland described the decoy concept, Russo stared at him for 10 seconds. Then Russo said, "Show me." The Japanese sniper threat at Tarawa was unlike anything American forces had faced before. These were not random shooters. They were trained specialists and elite marksmen who had spent years refining their skills. The Imperial Japanese Army had created formal sniper schools in 1937. Recruits trained for 18 months before they were deployed. They learned camouflage, fieldcraft, distance judging, and advanced shooting. The top students could hit man-sized targets at 600 yards using only iron sights. By 1943, Japan had placed approximately 1,200 trained snipers throughout the Pacific region. 800 of them were concentrated on Tarawa. They had been preparing defensive positions since August. They had 3 months to dig in, 3 months to choose firing locations, and 3 months to calculate ranges and plan escape routes. When the 2nd Marine Division came ashore on November 20th, they entered a killing ground built by experts. The snipers used a tactic known as one-shot relocate, fire once from a position, immediately move to a pre-selected second position 30 to 50 yards away. Wait. If Marines search the first position, shoot them from the new one. If they did not search, wait for the next target and do it again. American counter-sniper doctrine said to find the shooter, suppress with overwhelming firepower, advance and clear, but that required actually finding the shooter, and Japanese snipers had become masters at staying unseen. They fired from places Marines could not spot, inside palm fronds 40 feet above the ground, through firing openings in concrete bunkers, from spider holes covered with sand and vegetation. Some snipers had built bamboo platforms inside water channels. They would fire through a tiny opening and then pull a cover over themselves, completely hidden. Marine scout snipers tried to counter them. The 2nd Division had 12 trained counter-snipers. They were skilled men and excellent shooters, but 12 Marines could not cover an entire island. The Japanese had 800 snipers. The math did not add up. By November 21st, the 3rd day of fighting, Marine losses from sniper fire had reached 91 men, killed or wounded, and most were killed. Japanese snipers aimed for the head or chest. They did not injure, they removed targets. Holland watched all of this unfold. He watched Marines expose themselves as they moved between positions. He watched muzzle flashes from locations nobody could see. He watched good men fall to single rifle shots they never noticed. The squad Holland served in had lost 3 men to snipers. All 3 were experienced riflemen. All 3 had been cautious. All 3 were dead anyway. Private First Class Anthony DeMarco was the first. It happened on November 19th. During the initial landing, DeMarco had worked as a mechanic in San Francisco before the war. He was a smart kid and careful. He moved from the beach into a shell crater. He looked over the edge to scout the next position. A single rifle shot went through his helmet and killed him before he fell. Lance Corporal Thomas Berkeley was the second. Berkeley had survived the fighting on Guadalcanal. He understood how to move in combat and knew to keep his head low. On November 20th, he was crossing between 2 foxholes. He moved quickly and stayed low. A sniper hit him anyway. 1 round struck his upper chest. Berkeley died 30 seconds later. Corporal David Torres was the third. Torres was a squad leader with 10 years in the Corps. He had been directing fire from behind a disabled amphibious tractor when a sniper shot him through the neck. The bullet came from a palm tree 200 yards away. Nobody saw the muzzle flash. Nobody located the sniper. Holland had known all 3 men and had trained with DeMarco at Camp Pendleton. He had shared a transport ship with Berkeley while crossing the Pacific. He had taken orders from Torres for 4 months. Now all 3 were gone, killed by enemies they never saw. On the morning of November 21st, Holland sat in a foxhole with Corporal Russo and 2 other Marines, Private Lawrence Bennett from Oklahoma and Private First Class Daniel Carpenter from Georgia. All 4 men had watched too many friends die. All 4 were desperate for some kind of change. Holland told them about the crows and about the decoy method. He told them about creating targets that were not real. Russo asked how that idea could work against snipers, and Holland explained. Take a helmet, place it on a stick, and slowly lift it above cover like a Marine peeking over a berm. The sniper sees movement and the shape of a helmet. He fires, misses, and realizes he wasted a round. But more importantly, when he fires, there is a muzzle flash, and that flash shows his location. Bennett asked what use that was if the sniper simply changed positions afterward. Holland said the sniper would move, but the sniper could not move far. These were not random shooters. They were specialists with planned fighting positions. They had primary positions, secondary positions, and possibly third fallback positions, all inside a small area. Make the sniper shoot 3 or 4 times at decoys, and you could start to map out his operating zone. Then you could flood that zone with suppressive fire or call for artillery. Carpenter asked whether Holland had any proof this system would work. Holland said he had shot 280 crows with it. Snipers were just crows with rifles. Russo looked at Holland for a long moment. Then he picked up his helmet and a bayonet. He told Holland to show him how it worked. Holland took the helmet and the bayonet. He pushed the bayonet through the top of the helmet. Now he had a helmet on a 14-inch steel rod, a simple puppet. He crouched below the edge of the foxhole and slowly lifted the helmet above the rim. From 50 yards away, it would appear like the head of a Marine rising over cover. Russo watched, Bennett watched, Carpenter watched. Nothing happened for 15 seconds, then a rifle shot cracked across the battlefield. The bullet struck the helmet with a metallic ring and knocked it to the side. The bayonet bent but did not break. All 4 Marines dropped to the ground with their hearts pounding, but Holland was smiling. "Did anyone see the muzzle flash?" he asked. Bennett said yes. Palm tree about 80 yards to the northwest, maybe 30 feet up. Holland pulled the helmet back down. There was a clean bullet hole through the front, exactly where a Marine's forehead would have been. If that had been a real head, someone would be dead. But it was not a real head. It was a decoy, and now they knew where the sniper was hiding. Russo picked up a weapon from the foxhole, a Browning automatic rifle with 20 rounds of .306 ammunition. He aimed at the palm tree Bennett had pointed out and emptied the entire magazine into the leaves. They heard something heavy fall, striking branches and hitting the ground. Bennett and Carpenter moved forward with caution. They found a Japanese sniper at the base of the tree. He was dead. A single Browning automatic rifle round had gone through his chest. His Arisaka rifle lay beside him. 7 rounds were still in the magazine. Russo went back to the foxhole and looked at Holland. "How many more helmets can you set up?" he asked. Holland said as many as they had bayonets and spare helmets. Russo said start making them. They were going to eliminate every sniper on the island using farm tricks. By noon on November 21st, Holland had built 8 helmet decoys. Each one was a helmet fixed to a bayonet, a wooden stick, or the handle of an entrenching tool. Simple, rough, and effective. Russo created an organized method. His squad would work in pairs. One Marine would move the decoy. The other would watch for muzzle flashes through binoculars. When a sniper fired, they would record the location. Then they would either attack with rifles or call for help from a Browning automatic rifle gunner or a mortar team. The first sniper they took out after the palm tree kill was at 13:27 hours. Holland raised a helmet decoy near a wrecked bunker. A sniper fired from 120 yards away. He missed the helmet by 6 inches. Bennett saw the flash coming from a spider hole beside a disabled Japanese tank. Carpenter fired 3 rounds from his M1 Garand into that spider hole. The sniper did not fire again. When they checked later, they found him dead inside the hole. 2 hits, one through the shoulder and one through the head. The second sniper was more difficult. Holland lifted the decoy 3 times. There was no reaction. The sniper was waiting for a real target, so Holland tried something new. He tied a piece of torn uniform to the helmet to make it look like there was a body below. It made the illusion more convincing. He raised it slower, the way a Marine might cautiously expose himself. The sniper fired. He struck the helmet directly in the center. Carpenter saw the muzzle flash coming from a concrete pillbox 90 yards to the east. Russo called for a flamethrower team. They moved forward under covering fire and burned out the pillbox. The sniper died inside. By 1600 hours, Holland's squad had taken out 7 Japanese snipers using the helmet decoys. 7 confirmed kills with 0 American losses. Word spread through the 2nd Battalion faster than official radio messages. Other squads heard about the helmet trick. Marines began making their own decoys. Some used helmets on sticks. Others built crude mannequins from sandbags and spare uniforms. One inventive corporal shaped a dummy head from mud and rags. He set it up to look like a Marine resting in a foxhole. The Japanese snipers could not tell the difference. From 100 yards away, a helmet on a stick looked exactly like a Marine's head. They fired, missed, exposed their positions, and were killed. The psychological effect was immediate. Japanese snipers were taught to stay patient, wait for perfect shots, and never waste ammunition. But when they saw what appeared to be easy targets, their training pushed them to take the shot. And once they fired, American Marines learned exactly where they were. Some snipers adapted. They held their fire when they saw helmets rising over berms, but that created a new problem for them. They could not tell the difference between decoys and actual Marines, so they hesitated. And hesitation meant losing the chance to strike real targets. Either way, the Americans gained an advantage. By November 22nd, the 4th day of combat, Marine casualties from sniper fire dropped to 19, down from 47 on the previous day. The helmet decoys were working, but the Japanese adjusted. They had to. Their snipers were being killed at a rate they could not sustain. Japanese commanders ordered their snipers to stop firing at single exposed targets. They were told to engage only groups of Marines or targets that were clearly moving and speaking, and to ignore motionless helmets. They were told to assume the helmets were decoys, but that adjustment carried a cost. The snipers became less effective. They ignored shots they would have taken earlier. American Marines moved with greater freedom because the snipers were doubting their own judgment, and some snipers could not resist. When they saw what appeared to be a perfect target, their training and instinct took control. They fired and died. The most dramatic example took place on November 23rd. A Japanese sniper concealed in the island's central command bunker had killed 11 Marines over 4 days. The sniper was inside a reinforced concrete structure with multiple firing openings. American forces could not determine which opening he was using. Every time they suppressed one firing port, he would move to a different one and continue shooting. Staff Sergeant William Parker decided to end the problem with decoys. Parker led a 12-man squad from Ohio. He had lost 4 men to that bunker sniper. He was done waiting. Parker ordered his men to build 6 helmet decoys, then he placed them at various points surrounding the bunker. His plan was straightforward. Raise all 6 decoys at the same moment from different directions. Force the sniper to choose one target. When he fired, the other 5 positions would map the location of the muzzle flash. At 10:15 hours, all 6 decoys rose into view. The sniper fired and struck one decoy through the helmet. The muzzle flash came from the bunker's northwest firing port. Parker's squad concentrated their fire on that opening. 30 rounds of rifle ammunition, 2 Browning automatic rifle bursts, and 1 satchel charge tossed through the port. The sniper never fired again. When Marines entered the bunker later, they found him dead from the satchel charge explosion. His Arisaka rifle was still set in place. He had been aiming through the firing port when the charge went off. Parker's 6 decoy tactic became the new standard procedure. Squads throughout the 2nd Division began using multiple decoys to map sniper positions. The Japanese had no answer. If they did not shoot, Marines advanced without interference. If they did shoot, they exposed their positions and were killed. By November 24th, American forces had eliminated an estimated 340 Japanese snipers on Tarawa. Most were killed using helmet decoys or variations of the idea. The decoys made the snipers waste ammunition on false targets and reveal themselves to counter fire. Marine casualties from sniper fire fell to single digits each day. The killing ground the Japanese had prepared became a burial place for their own specialists. But Holland's contribution never received official acknowledgement. No medal, no commendation, no mention in after-action reports. The Marine Corps credited improved small unit tactics. The helmet decoy method was attributed to field innovations created by multiple units independently. Holland's name appeared in his battalion's casualty logs as wounded. On November 25th, he had been hit by shrapnel from a Japanese artillery shell. He suffered non-life-threatening wounds to his left leg and shoulder. He was evacuated to a hospital ship and then taken to Pearl Harbor for treatment. He never learned how many Marines survived because of his farm trick. He never knew that the helmet decoy method spread beyond Tarawa to other Pacific operations. He never learned that Marines at Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa would use the same idea to counter Japanese snipers. The technique evolved. By 1944, some Marine units were using advanced decoys, full mannequins with realistic heads made from plaster or paper mache. Some units used remote-controlled movement systems that operated through wire pulleys. One engineer battalion on Okinawa created decoys that appeared to breathe using a hand-pumped bellows system. But the principle remained unchanged. Make the enemy waste ammunition shooting at empty space while you locate and eliminate them. It was exactly what Holland had done with crows on his father's wheat farm. After the war ended, the Marine Corps conducted studies on sniper tactics in the Pacific. They reviewed casualty statistics, interviewed veterans, and compiled after-action reports from every major battle. The studies confirmed what Holland had learned through combat. Decoys were one of the most effective counter-sniper tools in the Pacific. Units that used decoys consistently had 67% fewer casualties from sniper fire compared to units that did not. The Marine Corps added decoy tactics to training doctrine after the war. Every infantry squad was taught how to build and use helmet decoys. The method became standard operating procedure, but the studies did not mention Marcus Holland. The official documents credited the method to field innovations created during the Tarawa campaign. No individual Marine was listed as the inventor. Holland returned to Kansas in 1946. He had spent 22 months in the Pacific and had fought at Tarawa, Saipan, and Tinian. He was wounded twice and awarded the Purple Heart both times. He received no other awards. He went back to the wheat farm and worked beside his father. He married his high school sweetheart Dorothy in 1947, had 3 children, and lived a quiet life. When people asked about the war, he said he had been an infantryman and had fought the Japanese, that was all. He never mentioned the helmet decoys and never discussed the snipers or the Marines who died before he figured out the farm technique. His children did not know their father had saved lives until 1988. A military historian studying Marine Corps counter-sniper tactics at Tarawa found references to helmet decoys in battalion records from November 1943. One report named Private First Class Marcus Holland as having demonstrated successful use of improvised target decoys to find and eliminate enemy snipers. The historian located Holland through veteran records. Holland was 67 years old by then, still working the farm, still shooting crows during harvest season. The historian asked about the decoys. Holland confirmed the story, said it was nothing special, and explained that he had simply used what his father taught him about dealing with crows. The same idea worked on snipers. The historian calculated the impact based on casualty reduction rates. After November 21st, the helmet decoy method likely saved between 120 and 180 American lives on Tarawa alone. If you included the techniques used in other operations, the number could reach as high as 600 Marines saved throughout the Pacific. Holland said he had never counted. He only remembered the men in his squad who made it home. Russo, Bennett, Carpenter, and the others who tried the decoys and survived Tarawa. Staff Sergeant William Parker retired from the Marine Corps in 1965. He had become a career non-commissioned officer, served in Korea, and trained recruits at Paris Island. In his retirement speech, Parker mentioned Tarawa. He mentioned the bunker sniper who had killed 11 Marines. He mentioned how a farm kid from Kansas had shown him how to use helmet decoys. Parker found Holland in 1972, drove to Kansas, and knocked on Holland's door. He introduced himself as the sergeant who had used 6 decoys to eliminate the bunker sniper. Parker told Holland that he had taught the decoy method to every recruit he trained for 20 years. Thousands of Marines had learned it. Many had used it in combat. Some had survived because of it. Parker said Holland deserved the Navy Cross for that idea. Holland disagreed. He said he had only been trying to keep his squad safe. He said any farm kid who had hunted crows would have done the same thing. The helmet decoy method remained in use through the Vietnam War. Marine Corps reconnaissance teams used versions of it to locate Viet Cong snipers in dense jungle terrain. The decoys evolved. Some units used inflatable figures. Others used thermal decoys that produced heat signatures to confuse enemy infrared optics. By the 1980s, the technique had become outdated. Modern warfare shifted to longer ranges, thermal imaging, and precision-guided weapons. Counter-sniper doctrine focused on electronic detection instead of physical decoys. But the core idea survived in training. Every Marine infantry officer learns about decoy tactics at the basic school. The helmet trick is taught as an example of battlefield creativity under stress. Simple solution, immediate use, lives saved. The training materials do not mention Marcus Holland. They credit the method to unnamed Marines on Tarawa. Holland died on June 12, 1994. He was 73 years old. Complications from diabetes. His funeral in Liberal, Kansas drew around 40 people. Family, a few friends, and 3 veterans he had served with. His obituary appeared in the local newspaper. It mentioned his service in World War II. Marine Corps, Pacific Theater, Purple Heart recipient, veteran. It did not say that he had saved roughly 143 Marines with a helmet on a stick. It did not say that he had changed counter-sniper doctrine. It did not say that thousands of Marines learned his method. 4 men whom Holland had never met came to the funeral. They introduced themselves after the ceremony. Former Marines, each one from a different war. All of them had been trained in helmet decoy techniques. All of them had survived firefights because they knew how to make snipers waste ammunition on empty targets. They found Holland through veteran networks. They wanted his family to know what he had done. They wanted his family to understand that their father had been more than an infantryman. Holland's children learned the entire story that day. They learned about the crows, the wheat farm, the Tarawa snipers, and the simple trick that saved lives. Today, Holland's story survives in scattered pieces. Battalion records in the National Archives, interview notes from military historians, and a paragraph in a study on counter-sniper tactics. The Marine Corps Museum at Quantico has a display about Tarawa. It shows a helmet mounted on a bayonet behind a glass case. The placard reads, "Improvised decoy used by Marines to locate Japanese sniper positions, November 1943. It does not mention Marcus Holland, but if you search the archived training films from the 1950s, you can find footage of Marines practicing decoy use. The narrator describes the method. Mount a helmet on a stick. Raise it above cover, watch for muzzle flashes, engage the sniper. The narrator does not explain where the idea came from. He does not mention that it broke no military rule because it was never in any rulebook. He does not mention that it began with a farm kid who learned how to outwit crows. That is how real innovation happens in war, not through committees or research programs, through Marines who see problems and solve them, through Marines who ignore manuals when manuals get people killed, through Marines who trust what worked on the farm more than what is written in regulations. Holland hunted crows for 40 years after the war. He never missed a harvest season. He used the same decoy idea every August when the crows returned. His wheat yields averaged 93%, the best in the county. He used that same idea on Japanese snipers, and he did not miss them either. His technique saved 143 American Marines, made Japanese snipers burn through their ammunition 3 times faster than usual. It changed how the United States Marine Corps fought, and nobody remembers his name, but you do now. For more stories like these, make sure to subscribe. Let us know which part of this story you enjoyed the most in the comments down below.